Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about Loki in Age of Mythology Retold. I would say Loki is the second most powerful Norse god in the game at the moment, though that might speak a lot about how Thor and Freyr handle at the moment. And Odin is certainly dominating the multiplayer meta at the moment. So is Poseidon, and actually the player who reached rank 1, he dominated with Kronos. I would say the meta right now is evolving a lot for quite a few people, and it's kind of worth saying that the popularity of the multiplayer for Age of Mythology Retold may not necessarily be where it needs to be at the moment. Just my personal perspective on that. Though, given how long the campaign is, I think a lot of people that picked up this game are just getting through dozens of hours of playing through the campaign before really jumping into multiplayer. Certainly that's something I did. Regardless, let's talk about Loki. His benefits, his pros, and his cons. Well, looking at his benefits, his initial god power is spy. This is not as good in some ways as Set, because it's obviously not going to reveal an area as large as Set's vision power is, but it is a permanent ability. You can put this on an enemy scout and see exactly what they're seeing. You can put it on an enemy villager in their main base and see what they're seeing. This is a fantastic ability. So send your first military unit, your berserker, your initial berserker, to the enemy base and pop this down on one of their villagers, so you will have a good idea of what they're doing, or a decent idea of what they're doing. On top of that, he gets eyes in the forest, which causes nearby units of Mother Nature, such as trees and animals, to temporarily grant you vision. Okay, so that is Age 1 benefits. Then, his focus is on myth units. Damaging enemy units can spawn myth units. Human soldiers contribute 10%, Herseers 50% of the damage dealt. So the way this works, there is a point system that determines which myth units are going to spawn. It is dependent on your age. So in Age 2, for instance, you won't be able to get, say, Age 4 units, as an example. Is dependent on you accumulating a certain number of points. How that works is that when you're fighting, any human soldier, and in particular Herseers, generate points based on the damage they're doing. I'm not quite sure how armor factors into this exactly, so if you do know, let me know. It would be good information. But the amount of points required is dependent on how much that unit would cost, with a factor of 10 for favor. So we look at, say, a fire giant. A fire giant would require 600 points, almost 600 points, or 580 points to generate. So that's 580 points of damage that you need to generate in order to spawn that myth unit. But it is randomized, so you can get any kind of myth unit from the Norse roster that is available in that age. It's not just the gods that you have available, it's also like Freyr, it's Odin, it's Thor, all that. So every single myth unit in the game. Now, cheaper myth units, the ones that are not necessarily as useful, can still be spawned. They will do so faster, whereas the expensive myth units, yeah, they'll take slower, but they'll obviously give you a significant combat ability benefit if you do get something like a mountain giant or a rock giant or a freaking Fafnir. That is really, really good. By the way, I gotta say, like, I do dislike the fact that you have such an amazing unit with the Fafnir that's tied to a mediocre god like Freyr, but that's a different discussion. So that is one of his principal benefits. Then, human soldiers and heroes do plus 25% counter damage, so extra infantry benefits, cavalry benefits, myth unit benefits. This is particularly useful for Loki because you would have a good amount of Herseers as Loki, and Herseers are decent units, but they can leave something to be desired. Well, giving them, extra counter damage, or giving soldiers in general extra counter damage is going to be really good. Then buildings are constructed 25% faster. So you can get barracks, you can get everything done, armory, market, 25% faster. That is pretty damn substantial. It's not as substantial as Kronos' benefit, but it is still a fairly good benefit. Then for the early game, quite crucial for the early game, not necessarily later on, but for the early game, you get 50% cheaper ox cards. This gives you flexibility in terms of how you're building up your early economy, because having cheaper ox cards means you can build more, means you don't have to have your villagers on wood or gold going further distances. Like, one of the things you want to do as Norse, regardless if we are playing, is get, a gold ox cart and a wood ox cart as quickly as possible. Well, Loki can do that faster. And then gatherers and dwarves can be transformed into berserkers for free. That is a pretty damn useful advantage, because, a gatherer is 50 food, a berserker is 50 food, and 30 gold. Now, the berserker does train faster, so just keep in mind that, but you can save up a lot of money with respect to that. I would not recommend doing it with dwarves unless you have a ton of gold, but it's still a nice benefit. It's also a good defensive benefit, because it means, like, oh, if there's an overwhelming enemy army that's about to obliterate a bunch of villagers, just transform them all into berserkers and have them fight. They might not win, right, if the enemy's gotten drop on you, but they will do some damage and also help fill up the meter, the global meter that you're building up for summoning a myth unit. So that is all very, very useful. In H2, you have a choice between Forseti or Heimdall. Now, we can talk about, like, Heimdall being pretty useful in terms of giving you dwarven breastplates, giving you trolls, Hall of Fame, so infantry speed, hero speed. That is certainly nice to have. And also making our berserkers in Herdmans, your anti-cav unit, less vulnerable to hack attack. So just more durability over there for those berserkers, which meshes well with him being able to transform his gatherers for free into berserkers. So, just that extra durability. But I'm personally a big fan of Heimdall. Any kind of defenses that the enemy wants to build, Undermine is just going to take care of that real quick. Like, unless we're talking about fortresses, of course, but towers and walls, just instantly obliterated. And this actually does a good amount of damage in general against buildings. Well, not enough to destroy them, but it will hurt. Then you get Einherji. Now, the thing about Einherji, they are a ridiculously good unit that meshes extremely well with Loki's playstyle. Because you want to do damage to summon myth units. Well, guess what Einherji do? They boost the speed and attack of nearby units. So, one of the things about Hersiers, they can be a bit slow, right? Well, not necessarily so much if they're getting buffed by Einherji. And yes, you then get Gjallarhorn that buffs these units up and adds 5 seconds to boost effect duration. Then you also get the defensive benefit for HP for towers, walls, buildings, and also building training and research rate plus 20%. That is substantial, because it also applies to advance you to the next stage. So if you want to get to H3 or H4 quickly, going with Heimdall is an enormous benefit in your game. Then at tier 3 we either get Bragi or Njord. Njord is like Bragi, yeah, he gives you flaming weapons, can be pretty strong, though I'm not necessarily impressed too much by the battle boards, but you do get Berserker hit points, resources returned on death, so favor for more myth unit speed, regeneration rate, so if you're getting some really powerful myth units in H4, that can be pretty damn strong, and also a naval benefit. Or Njord, who gives you Mountain Giants and Jotuns. Now here's the thing about Jotuns. Mountain Giants inherently are fairly good units against buildings, and good at tanking damage, but Jotuns, they're good against everything except heroes. Like, they are literally army killers. Like, they're ridiculous. Be it in campaign, skirmish, multiplayer, doesn't matter. Like, Jotuns slow, sure, but damn, these things are hard to take down, and they can deal with a lot of things. Not necessarily Mountain Giants. The damage the Mountain Giants have against human soldiers may leave something to be desired. So if you're going to get a lot of Mountain Giants, it could be worth it. You also get the benefit for raiding cavalry to produce gold in addition to favor while fighting enemy units. So that's nice. And then you get Ring Giver, which buffs your Jarls and gives melee attack bonuses against myth units. And then H4 is where we get a bit ridiculous. Tier, not really that great. Like, Fibble Winter, kind of lame. Fenris, Wolf Brood, they are relatively cheap in terms of food, not so great in terms of favor. Not really the greatest damage, though if you get a good amount of them, that can be good. But you do get a vampiric aura effect for your berserkers. And you also get a Huskarl benefit against buildings. But Hell is where it's at. See, Hell summons the Nidhogg. Now, the Nidhogg can be easy to take down if the enemy has any kind of strong anti-myth capability. You don't need a lot of units to take down a Nidhogg, like just a couple of heroes or anti-myth unit ranged will deal with it. But if the enemy is not countering that, or if you deal with those with the rest of your army, the Nidhoggs can obliterate everything in its freaking path. And the crazy thing about Hell, well, two other things. You get every single type of giant. You won't have the upgraded frost giants, but to be honest, you don't need the frost giants. You get fire giants and mountain giants that you can construct instantly, pretty much. Like, 95% is pretty much instant. Like, you click the button, right after that, it's summoning from the temple. Obviously, you still have to pay the cost. But then you get Granite Blood. This is expensive in terms of the wood cost, but it buffs up all of your giants. So imagine, Jotuns, which are already strong enough, with Granite Blood, are absurd. Fire giants with this are absurd. So you get the Sons of Muspel, like, 20% HP for mountain giants, 40% HP for fire giants. And look, if you're summoning rock giants, which you can, by the way, extra 40% HP. That is just an absurd level of power over there, if you can afford it. Is affording it that is the problem, because one of the significant issues that Loki has, yes, the Ox cards are cheaper, that gives you some flexibility in terms of like, okay, how am I going to build, where I'm going to send my characters, how stressed am I going to be about getting those Ox cards and all that, but you don't have the hunting benefit that Odin has. So you look at Odin over here, right? He gets 10% extra food generation and 25% extra favor generation from Grey Hole units. He doesn't have Hell, which is a downside. He does have Baldur, which, yeah, regular fire giants, but still. Or you look at 4. The thing about 4 is that your initial dwarves can be used on gold. On wood. Because they gather wood pretty decently fast. Obviously, gatherers will do it the fastest, but you can get a good amount of wood early on. Then every villager you're training, assign that to food, get food, and upgrade. So and you also get those extra upgrades from the armory and free dwarves from when you're researching armory upgrades. That is substantial in its own right. I would say like that's kind of one of the problems. Like early on, and one of the reasons I think like Loki works better than Thor and Freyr in the early game, that Oxcart benefit and the Gather to Berserker benefit, those are not insignificant. But long term, I would say the other ones do overcome you. So you don't necessarily want to play a long game if you're looking to play as Loki. You want to be aggressive. You want to push aggressively. You want to get myth units. You want to get Hairseers, or not just even Hairseers. You don't have to just play the Hairseer game. You can play with other things. One of the problems is you don't have the same kind of mobility like as Odin, because one of the significant benefits of Odin is that, yes, you can get Heimdall with all the benefits that come with that, but he has Freya as well, who gives you better cavalry and raiding cavalry and durability for your heroes. I would actually say Freya would work very, very freaking well with Loki. Maybe a bit too strong. That's probably the reason he doesn't have her. Well, also mythological reasons, but still very substantial benefits for Odin over there. That's why he's the best Norse god at the moment. But yeah, Loki does have a lot of advantages in his own right, but you kind of felt like if you end up playing a long game, I would say like Thor and Freyr are better. But in a short game, which a lot of ranked games are at the moment, Loki is pretty solid. Significant myth unit benefits, human soldier benefits, and vision benefits. Again, Odin is better because he doesn't have a god power. He gets infinite freaking scouts that are flying with his ravens over there. It may take a while for them to respawn, like short time. Yeah, it's not as short as the game thinks it is, but still pretty substantial benefit in regards to that. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.